Of the Portland City Council to discuss code change items that either are or will be coming to the council this year. With that, I'll turn it over to Diana Shiplett, who is part of our transition team. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Happy to be here. My name is Diana Shiplett. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a strategic policy analyst with the Charter Transition Team. I'm here to talk to you today about all of the codes we're bringing forward to conform with city charter. So, how did we get here? Not sure that the slide deck is showing.
Where are we?
I think I'm sharing.
First there was darkness.
Let me try again. We're gonna try sharing one more time.
How's that go? First there was darkness.
Yeah, exactly.
And there was like,
Yes,
That's my old
I
testament
think that's
there.
right. I think that was day one.
Well, I'll move on for the moment, and we'll hope to get the slide deck going in a second.
Rebecca's a genius. She'll figure it out. We can wait a second.
I am logged into the Zoom meeting. Maybe I'm in the wrong Zoom meeting. All right, so we're in the one that got sent to us. So let me exit there and try and find the meeting that you need me at. This was the one that was emailed to us. We get a different one than. Okay.
Just so we have an overview of what we're covering today, so are we gonna go, I see we have a bunch of specific rules we're going through, and I've seen the slide deck, but what's like, what's the basic structure? What are we hoping to leave this meeting with?
There we go.
We're all looking at you,
It's
Michael.
really- I think it's really your pleasure. We're here at your request, and we're happy to answer whatever you would like and go through this in whatever order you would like.
Well, why don't we do this? If we can't get the PowerPoint to come up, it's not the end of the world. There was life before PowerPoint. Oh, here it is.
That means impeccable, man.
Yeah.
yeah. Can I make a statement?
I was going to suggest we do old school and just actually talk to each
Oh,
other.
talk to Well, Mr. Mayor, if we were just chatting, here's what I hope is going on. This is a remarkable moment in terms of policymaking here at the city of Portland. You know, in less than 90 days, our entire form of government is going to change. And we have, I think, a very kind of an uncomfortable task of updating, I think, all of code, basically, to reflect that. I know we're all very busy right now because it is code. I try to take this seriously. You know, I kind of see the agenda on a Friday. We vote on it on a Wednesday. There's often hundreds of pages of code to pay attention here. I know for the most part that we're just kind of almost doing a find and replace, going from, you know, bureau heads or the mayor to the city administrator. I think along the way, sometimes there are some subtle changes that need to be made too. So I do think it's important that we at least roll our eyes over this. And I want the record to show that, the scope of the material that we're supposed to evaluate here is so large that I certainly don't feel comfortable that have had the chance to do a full due diligence on what's happening here. As we talked about, I think last week, sometimes switching authority from, sometimes you're moving authority from a bureau head to the city administrator. That's one thing, and I think that's pretty clear in code. Last week, we kind of talked about the dynamics of shifting power from a chief engineer to a city administrator. That feels a little bit different to me, although I haven't had a chance to fully think it out. I think this week in council, we're making some changes to some financial code, for example, and it seems like even within that, we're kind of we're providing some clarity there in some spaces. I don't think I fully appreciate the nuances of all the changes we're making in this space. I do wish that we had more time to fully process what's going on, and I just do kind of want to put this message in a bottle to future generations of policymakers that it is plausible to me that we did not get everything right as we go through this process between now and the end of the year. But I do appreciate the opportunity to at least do my best to get educated on what we need to do in order to do a warm handoff to whoever sits in these seats next year.
Commissioner Maps, one of the questions I've wrestled with on this is whether we do kind of an omnibus, ordinance, all encompassing that broadly cleanses, things in the existing code that don't make sense in the new. Just in case we miss something or we get into a level of granularity where we inadvertently create an ambiguity in the next form of government. I don't know. I've thought about that too. There's stuff in code that's clearly executive or administrative that we're trying to clean up. There's specification of bureau heads that should be not specified in bureau heads. I mean, almost for precisely the reason you're getting at. It's so much code to absorb, and there's so many judgments here that we're just trying to clean up and then make space for the next council to proscribe how this should work going forward, at least consistent with the charter. So I don't know. I've also wondered about just like under these principles, we're ordaining that, that won't carry over into the next form of government, and the next form of government does what they want to do under the new charter.
I am very open to having that conversation about process. I don't have any smart ideas here. If I could ask for anything from the process, it would just be more time. I recognize I don't got more time. So if my colleagues want to suggest a better way forward, I do think, however, it's important for us to at least have a chance to roll our eyes over it to see if we catch anything, like the engineer thing. So, I recognize we're not going to get this resolved in this moment, but at least we've raised the issue in the record, and perhaps maybe there's enough there that someone wants to look at it, and maybe it's fine. Maybe the next council wants to fix it. But if someone wants to suggest a process forward, including staff, I'm very open to it.
Well, why don't we do that? Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, I'm just glad we're doing this. I know there's a lot of code clutter, and actually I think this is something we could have done whether we were doing charter change or not.
Correct.
And so it seems like charter change has just alerted us to the fact that we have a lot of code clutter, and I'm sure that Commissioner Rubio figured this out. I know I did in my 2.5 years working on the permitting system, is that we have so much code clutter in permitting. And so this is just the tip of the iceberg. So
Correct.
Thank you for your hard work. It'll be great to listen to what kind of housekeeping we need to focus on this morning.
Sure, and I'll make my presentation short that we have lots of time to chat. So here is just a high-level overview of some of the process we went through to get to where we are in conforming the charter. After the Portland voters approved the charter amendments in November of 2022, we began drafting updates to the two most significant sections of code. The first was the ranked choice voting code approved in May of 2023. The second was the council's organizational and procedure code approved in September of 2023. Through the process of these two updates, we frequently heard from commission offices how challenging it is to understand and these changes in isolation from the rest of the charter-related updates. So when presenting the code update bundles, I've attempted to ensure that the titles are grouped in a way that they speak to each other, either by subject area or by cross-references. As it took nearly a year to complete the first 2 sections of code, the team decided to be more strategic in its approach and began focusing only on updates to the authorities of the mayor and council, including removing commissioner in charge. However, in May of 2024, when the team was called upon to rapidly update drafts related to reflecting the city's organizational chart approved in November of 2023 in order to align with the fiscal year 2025-26 budget. This organizational focused update highlighted concerns of some of the commissioners regarding authorities. In August of 2024, Mayor Wheeler, at the direction of the rest of the council, provided direction to us to give most authorities to the city administrator, who can delegate them to the appropriate person, program, or bureau. This new direction required us to start from scratch. We had to rewrite all of the titles that had been previously reviewed and drafted between September of 2023 and August of 2024. This meant that what was intended to be 4 months of small code updates coming to you have been crunched in, unfortunately, to 4, well, now 5, council meetings very late in the calendar year. And for that, I apologize. So what changes are necessary? I think you've seen most of these slides, so I'll go through them pretty quickly. But for the people at home who haven't seen them, we're required to update authorities. First, we need to remove commissioner in charge. Second, at the direction of Mayor Wheeler, we are giving the administrator the authority to direct the work of bureaus, adopt administrative rules, and approve contracts or agreements.
Can I just ask a quick question
Sure.
on this? And I appreciate the way you're
100%.
doing this here. Can the city administrator, is it the city administrator or the city administrator and/or their designee? Can the city administrator designate these authorities?
The city administrator can delegate any of these authorities.
I'm sorry, delegate, I don't know, I said designate.
That's
Thank
okay.
you. Okay, so, and that's covered elsewhere in the charter then, so this language doesn't necessarily dictate
Correct.
that the administrator solely is responsible?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
In Title I, we're providing the definition of city administrator to be city administrator or their delegee. So wherever you see just city administrator called out, it incorporates that definition.
All right, thanks, Robert.
Yes, thank you. Good question. Another administrative change is we are removing the solely administrative sections from code and moving them to administrative rules, also known as Portland policy documents. And along with moving them to administrative rules, we are reviewing all of those code sections because many of them, for example, the one that is shown on the screen, are both unbelievably incorrect and also administrative in nature. So before they go into administrative rule, they're all being reviewed and updated.
And so just to clarify then, if they're moving from code to administrative rules, so the practical implication there is that the executive branch can change those
Correct.
without approval from the legislative branch,
Correct.
but the legislative branch could pass code, could they not, that restricts that ability should they have a disagreement? I mean, that's a question I have, is where is that line? I mean, once it's delegated as an administrative rule, it's not in the charter, it's in code.
Mayor, that's a great question. The line between the executive's rulemaking authority versus the legislative's policymaking authority, I think, is one that the new form of government will wrestle with for a number of years. It's something, if you look at the federal level, they have wrestled with it over decades to try to get that right balance, and the Supreme Court has weighed in on that division. But I think in general, your statement is correct, that if there is a code provision and then the city administrator adopts administrative rules to implement those code provisions, and council is not happy with that policy or how it's being implemented, they can change the code And then the administrative rules would need to be at least consistent with that code
Okay,
or
so,
code authority.
let me just put my cards fully on the table. I don't like that. I think it should reside in the executive branch as the final authority. And so I'm made uncomfortable by the idea that the legislative branch could slowly usurp the authority of the executive branch, because the executive branch already has fairly limited authority under the charter, as there's no veto power, there's no second guessing what the legislative branch does. And so I would be concerned about legislative branch creep, if I could use that term, in the future. However, Robert, on the flip side then, the charter speaks very clearly to the differentiation between the executive branch and the legislative branch, and ultimately the charter rules. So would that be legal counsel making that determination, or how would that work?
Great question, and I think that, you know, you identify the executive branch being concerned of legislative creep by the legislative branch. I think the legislative branch council will have concern about executive creep by the executive branch
Through administrative rulemaking.
through administrative rulemaking.
Okay.
And that is the natural and I think designed tension between the legislative and executive branches.
Okay.
To push and pull on each other to strike that right balance.
Okay.
And that balance may change over years, and it may ebb and flow. And that is, we have seen that ebb and flow at the federal level, for example.
I want you folks to be able to get through your presentation, but as long as we have some dialogue around this particular piece, can you help me, and I recognize that this will probably be a challenging thing to do. What's the line between when something belongs in code and when something is an administrative rule?
I think that's the inherent question that we're just wrestling with.
Right.
I mean, that is the most,
But I don't know if I heard a definition. I think I heard maybe a process. Can you, like, what is the,
Yeah,
is there, or even if there's not a line, where does it get? Who's the ultimate arbiter? Is it state law or, well, okay, help me out here, just in terms of how to think about it. And Mike can jump in here too. He looks awake.
I don't know if Mike wants to answer this question.
Oh, Mike's not
I
on.
think Robert has, rightfully articulated that this is a balancing act between the power of the branches. Their power originates from the charter. There is clear charter language that the legislative branch makes policy and adopts budgets, and the executive branch runs the day-to-day operations of city government. Now, what those words actually mean when you put them into rule for the executive, how we're going to run the day-to-day operations of the city and exercise executive authority through the organization, and we're going to use rule to do that. The council exerts their authority through code, and the use of those authorities by those two mechanisms sometimes comes into clash with each other. And I'm fond of recalling my time at Metro. I was their first manager. They had changed their charter. They had an elected executive and an elected council. And for 6 or 7 years of the first 2 terms of the executive, they were term limited. But those 6 or 7 years were an exercise in branches fighting with each other and using their authority to avoid the other branch. And it got very messy and it got very cumbersome, so much so that after about 6 years, the executive, Mike Burton, the council president, David Bragdon, got together and said, this is not working. And they changed their form of government to a council manager form. Now, I'm not saying that's prologue to what we're going to experience, But it is difficult to answer your question because it really depends on how the branches interpret their authority as they move forward. One of the reasons I've said to this body many times, it is inherent that the executive and the legislative branches work together as much as they can, realizing there will be disagreements, no doubt. But if they start only trying to exercise their own authority without the other branch, we're on our way to a real problem. So that's my interpretation of where we could end up if the branches don't work closely together. So
I can speak a little to how we were deciding along the
Sure.
way. So whenever we were looking at a piece of code, if it was very procedural in nature, you take this document, you walk it 2 doors down, you get a signature, you come back, you fax it. That is, in our opinion, inherently administrative and doesn't belong in code. And so those were the things that we were focused on removing. When it comes to like a policy, those are things that should stay in code. And that balance between those two was sometimes hard to review. But again, we were very much interested in taking anything procedural out as we were going through them.
Thank you. And I see Commissioner Ryan has his hand up. Just one more clarifying question. I'm trying to think of moments in my career at the city where I've relied on administrative codes, and I think a lot of those probably come back to before I was on council, so over at Civic Life or whatnot. So, and it seems like a lot of times the rule, I might have had to rely on ARs when it came to maybe the ultimate origins of labor grievances, like someone was asked to work out a class. Would that be an example of where administrative rules would be? Give us a couple of examples where administrative rules become important.
well, we have a significant amount of what are called HRARs, those are
Yeah.
human resources administrative rules. They guide things like vacation, they guide things like sick leave, they guide things like benefits, they guide a lot of different ways we do our HR work on a day-to-day basis. So basically, they're the rules on how we administer HR at the city, right? And those are, and we have those in other places, like how we do purchasing. There are a lot of procurement administrative rules. And so in almost every endeavor, we've got sets of administrative rules to guide how we do business on a day-to-day basis. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. I'm trying to map onto some work I was probably doing 6 or 8 years ago. So just for colleagues, I think back when I was a manager in this space and supervising folks who were represented by labor, a lot of times labor grievances might come up, I think because we maybe had violated or
Sure.
allegedly had violated an administrative rule, asking someone to do a job or for example,
Grievances almost always are generated out of a contract language
contract.
rather than administrative rule.
All right.
So if you see a grievance, it will almost always cite a section of a labor agreement that someone thinks we violated. And then it goes through a process which is laid out in the labor agreement
Right.
about state levels of the grievance. So when it comes to that kind of human resource
Right.
issue, it's governed almost entirely by labor
By the
agreements.
contract.
Yeah.
I don't think this is obviously a rich area of policy and law. I encourage policymakers to continue to lean into it. And I'll let Commissioner Ryan go. I appreciate your patience, sir.
Thank you. This is a great conversation. I really appreciate, Diana, the way you explained what you're doing here, which is you were looking at all the codes and you were looking at which ones fall more into the administrative function, which fall more into a council legislative function. And I think it's honest to say it wasn't always black and white. And then Michael Jordan, when you explained that this is the healthy tension, and I do love that word because I mean it, that's what democracy is supposed to be about. And so there's one that I think had a little bit of that grayness when you brought up the contracts. I think it was on the previous slide. In some roles, I think of my school board experience where in many ways the superintendent's almost like a mayor and a city administrator in one, and then you have the legislative branch. We had dollar amounts that would trigger the board having a say-so, where when they were smaller, then they were not even on consent. They just were and anyone that ran a nonprofit had similar agreements, usually in bylaws with their board. So I was a little taken with that one that it didn't specify a dollar amount. What was that discussion like? And maybe I missed something. Yeah.
Yeah, I'll let Robert
Was
start.
that the last slide? And maybe I was just a preview and you didn't get into the details, and I apologize if I'm jumping ahead.
Yeah, that's a great question. And we, under the charter, it gives the mayor the ability to negotiate and execute contracts that are consistent with the city budget. And so it's
So the budget's where the lever is. Okay.
correct. That's where that lever
But if
is.
midstream, when we're, the council, I would assume, would want periodic updates on administrative work that's going on. And in that, there could be questions and then there could be action, correct?
That's absolutely correct, and I'm very glad you brought that up, because the charter also has a provision that requires the administrator to provide reports to the council as the
Yes.
council requires. And what that is really getting at is, we think of the council as the legislative branch. It also has this very important oversight function.
Yeah.
And that report requirement is meant to solidify that oversight. So you could pass the budget and it has millions of dollars for a project. You could then require the administrator come back and give us regular updates. How is that project proceeding?
And I assume that will be used frequently because this is local government, local services. We're very close to the ground. It's not like Salem or definitely not like the federal branch. So it will be very important for the council to be active in implementation, since that's where we've been failing more than policy. So, okay, in my opinion. Thanks. Oh, let's just say it too. The fact that we don't have the veto or the council override is also fascinating, because usually when you have this scenario, you have the tool in democracy. I haven't really seen any examples where it doesn't exist, where you have a veto and an override. So that's one missing tool in the balance of our government. Yeah.
Can I say something on that? I think a lot of attention has been paid to the lack of a veto, and I think that is important, because that is a check and balance you see in other systems. I think the other side of that we don't talk much about is, for example, federal, state level. The executive, when that bill is in front of them, they have a choice. And they can veto it and send it back to the legislature, or they sign it. They put their name on it. They put their political capital and their reputation on the line to implement it. And under our system, the executive has no choice. They're not signing it, they're not vetoing it, it just is what it is. And so for me, it's not so much the lack of the veto, it really is the lack of, the mayor doesn't put their name on it, their capital on the line to actually implement it in a way. So that's something I think is worth, it's worth considering. And we are gonna live with this new system, and it's gonna be years and years before we maybe make another change. But I think that lack of the mayor putting
It's all the same.
their name on it is important.
Yeah, we at the outset, we siloed the two. Yeah, that's just what the Charter Commission did. Thanks.
So if I could add to that, and then I'll shut up, because I guess I've gotten enough airtime on it. The existence of a veto also helps shape the policy from the beginning. And I don't want to overlook that as a factor as well.
Could you say that again, Mr. Mayor?
So if you're part of the city council and you know that the mayor can veto what you're doing, you have to take into account the mayor's perspective as the only citywide elected officer. So it's a moderating force, I would argue.
I would observe that practically the difference between 7 votes and 8 is what we're talking about, right? If you have, 7 votes under the existing charter, you can pass legislation without the mayor's signing off on. And if you did a typical 2/3 veto, that would be 8 votes. So I'm not saying that 1 vote difference doesn't, is meaningless. It's not meaningless, but practically in a 12-person council, it's not that dramatic a difference.
Got it.
Because the mayor's tiebreaker, if it's 6-6, so 7, right, passes without the mayor's approval, and 8 would pass even if they had a typical veto at 2/3, so.
Yeah, I mean, it may be much ado about nothing. I mean, we'll just have to see.
Yeah, I think at the end of the day, the math says it's not a big deal. The two things that were brought out regarding the more subtle differences probably are more important. And both of those subtle differences drive the branches together.
So can I give the one exception, though? Because I'm persuaded by what Renee says. It makes me actually think about this a little bit differently. But the one exception that I worry about is the budget. Because right now, under the existing charter, one of the only real authorities that the mayor has that's super powerful, other than the ability to assign bureaus, is the budget and leading that budget process. And it would have to be a somewhat nefarious act on the part of the city council, which I don't think will happen just based on what I know about the people who are seeking public office. But it could happen. And I remember, and I won't give a specific example except to say I remember this happening before at a different government located not far from here across the river, where a majority decided that they were just going to completely deep six the chair's priorities and the chair's budget. And I guess that could happen here, but without the veto, again, there's no moderating process as the council develops an alternative budget to what the mayor has proposed.
And I agree with that. And to Commissioner Gonzalez's point, the vote threshold that you would choose to override a veto, it could be 8 votes, it could be 9 votes, it could be 10 votes. You would put that in the charter. The higher the threshold of votes to overturn it, the stronger that veto power. And so that's another kind of balancing you would want to think about if voters down the road want to consider that.
Great.
Keep
You ready
going,
to move
Diana.
on?
All right, good job.
Yeah, move on, move along.
The next set of changes we're doing are related to language. We're removing gendered language. It's shocking how much that includes in the the code currently. We're also changing the word shall to either must, will, or may at the advice of the city attorney's office.
Can you explain that one just for my own benefit? I mean, shall and must, what's the difference?
Mayor, I'll just tell you this. There's lawyers that would talk for hours on this
Oh
topic.
dear, okay.
I am
Sorry,
not one of those lawyers, but suffice it to say that in some contexts, courts have found shall to be ambiguous, and the modern trend is to not say shall and say must or may.
Oh, okay. Thank you. I appreciate the explanation.
Thank you. We're also updating the new city organization that was approved both last November and in July. What's next? So tomorrow, you're going to see 3 sets of titles. They are all related to finance, and I'll have more detail about them in my presentation tomorrow, but just as a highlight, Title V has the most significant changes. Most of that current title outlines the processes and procedures for how the city staff do their work, which should be an administrative rule. This is a good example of the things that we are taking out. So the title is being significantly reduced from the current 26 chapters to only 6 chapters. Finance staff have been helping us review and update the financial policies and administrative rules, or financial policies that will be going into administrative rule after we are removing them from this title.
Did you say 26 to 6?
Correct.
Congratulations. Good job.
Like my favorite chapter of code right now. Titles 6 and 7 have significantly fewer changes, and mostly they're focused on aligning with the charter. 2 things to note, though. First, that Chapter 6.06 of Title VI will not be included with tomorrow's proposed amendments. And this is because the revenue staff will be bringing forward a separate, substantially changed ordinance to you at a later date. And their updates will also include any necessary charter reform edits.
Quick question on this. So the 26 to 6, is there any plans for relatively quick administrative action to fill the gap on that?
We're hoping that most of them are actually going to be completed before the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah,
So Mike will adopt some sort of administrative rules that would
correct.
fill that gap.
Be
for
all
the time.
prepared for him to sign them January 1.
Okay,
Or
got it.
2, whenever we're back in business. And second, Title VI also includes the addition of a new chapter, which is 6.10, Arts Education and Access Income Tax. And this chapter was originally in Title V, but has been moved to Title VI so that it sits with the rest of the tax code. I'm going to pass it now to Victor Sanders from the Parks Department, because Parks Bureau, they are bringing something forward later as well.
Victor Sanders with the Vibrant Community Service Area. As Diana had mentioned, Title 20 changes. This is the code related to park rules. We took the opportunity with the charter updates to also amend, some of the park rules that we'd been looking at actually for the last couple of years with both the Parks Board, internal staff, and park rangers. So what you're going to see in the Title 20 updates are not only amended parks rec code for the city charter change, but also resolving outdated and conflicting language that we found, and also making changes to park rules to be consistent with state law. We also have a couple updates related to authority for the city administrator to address park rule violations that impact the visitor experience and park resources through civil penalties. Right now, park rangers can do limited civil penalties in dog off leash cases. We're going to expand that to include other things like dumping, permit violations, other common issues that we're running across, like permit denials and things like that. Civil penalties are a common tool that the City of Portland uses, similar to PBOT, Bureau of Development Services, the Tax Division, and Urban Forestry. There'll be an administrative rule associated with that will come to council, so council will have an opportunity to see what that administrative rule looks like. And then we're also going to begin to address new and emerging technology use in parks. So we're talking about e-scooters, e-bikes. That has not been addressed within Title 20. And that will also be an administrative rule. And the reason for that is because it's so technical, right? What is an e-bike? What is an e-scooter? If you saw on Instagram recently, people now have e-rollers in their shoes, right? Like bringing that to council each time there's a new technology is fairly cumbersome, right? And so we want the ability for the city administrator to make those updates as they need to, and then also make the changes of where those will be allowed in parks, right? There might be specific parks where we do or do not want that technology, and bringing that to council each time we want to make that change is fairly cumbersome, and takes quite a bit of time. So there'll be some briefings on this to your offices. I know it's kind of a lot to take in all at once, but we're really excited about this. As I had mentioned, we've been working for the last couple of years with staff and with park rangers and the Parks Board on these updates. So I can take any questions right now. And also, as I mentioned, we'll have a separate council ordinance just for the Title 20 changes and those administrative rules.
Thank you for that update. And here, let me raise a red flag or something I hope that we can talk about during our briefings. And that is providing the city administrator with the power to impose civil penalties for behaving badly in the park. And I'm not going to tie you guys up in knots over the specifics of this, but I'll tell you, we've also encountered this question in other policy areas since I've been on council. For example, I think Commissioner Gonzalez and I had a rich dialogue around probably the camping ban. And if you were to impose penalties there, should the author of those penalties be the city administrator or council? And I think there are many different ways to answer that question. Frankly, at this hour, I probably have some instincts on that. But I haven't fully decided it or come up with a coherent algorithm that determines how I answer that question in different contexts. So, and I think it's one worth talking about. I don't know if we have to completely get it right by the end of the year, but over time, I think the people who serve in these seats probably do want to think about that more deeply than we're going to do it in the next 60 days.
Robert, on that point, I mean, we've had, Commissioner Maps alludes to the dialogue around imposition of penalties on the one side. There's also the criminal component. I mean, I'm on the working assumption that if you're going to impose anything that's criminal, that should be done by council. I mean, I don't know that that's black and white. I don't know that we have firm guidance on that, but that if you're going to impose something, at least a general prescription that if you do X, it could result in some sort of jail time, that may be as most defensible as a council matter. The imposition of fines, I don't know. I mean, maybe you end up in the same place, maybe not. I don't know.
I'm probably exactly in the same way. I don't think I want to give the city administrator the power to throw somebody in jail for violating a rule without it going through council, but fines, I don't know. I'm sorry, Commissioner.
No, that's right. I had my hand up around this thought, which is, the question would be, so DCA Szymanski, did you have a conversation with DCA Myers on these violations? First of all, thank you, Victor. That was a really good report. And the one that I was lingering in my head about, besides educating myself on e-rollers, was if you had that dialogue that would bring this so it was vetted properly.
Good morning, Sonia Szymanski. I have not spoken with Mike Myers. What sort of consultation have we done with our public safety partners?
Yeah, so when this process started a couple of years ago, we did meet with Mike Myers on this issue, and we're really talking about a very narrow set of issues that rangers would handle. So this is not, it's kind of in that gray area below a criminal issue, but something that police really wouldn't be responding to, right? They're not going to come out for permit violations, probably not going to come out for most dumping violations. They're not coming out for dog off leash issues. These are really kind of low-level problems that are related to the visitor experience and park resources.
That helps when you explain it like that.
Yeah.
When you didn't explain it like that, it allowed us all to wonder. So I appreciate further explanation of the issue. But also, it's important to remember that the park rangers are a part of the first responder system. So anytime you're getting into a park ranger public safety issue, I do think it would be healthy if the two DCAs overseeing this dialogue would connect with each other, just because they might see something that we wouldn't in our work area. That's all.
Yeah,
It's about this new wonderful organization chart we're building and how to make it even better. That's
Yeah,
all.
That's
Thanks.
right, and I will. Thank you.
I don't think so.
Keep us going.
Keeping going.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Victor.
Thanks, Victor.
On the 13th, we'll be bringing forward the next large batch. These are mostly related to sort of the general servicing of the city. On the 20th, we'll
Can I
bring.
jump in here?
Oh, sure.
That's an awful lot of code
Correct.
for a city
Correct.
commissioner to
The
deal
good thing
with.
is
That
one
could
of
be
those are being
thousands of
repealed
pages.
entirely, so that lessens one of them.
Okay. I appreciate that, and I understand what's going on, but at the same time, that's an awful lot.
It is a lot, and I will say that of the ones submitted, I believe only 2 of them are being replaced. One's being repealed, 2 are being replaced, and the rest are just strike-throughs. So it'll be easier for you to see the changes along the way.
Okay, thank you.
And then on the 20th, we're bringing forward another batch of titles. You'll notice that Title I originally was on the 13th, and it's been moved to the 20th so that we can finish some discussions with the bureaus on that one. And then we are adding an additional day, December 4th, we will bring forward the final batch. Unfortunately, in order to have these titles that are on December 4th be in place by January 1, they'll have to go forward by emergency. So I was hoping to avoid that entirely, but it's an unfortunate part of it. And that is actually the end of my presentation, so happy to continue our discussion.
Okay, so just jump in. We're not.
It's a work session, just jump in, super
right.
cash.
So some of them allow you to pause and go, okay, that's going to be a long conversation, and some are definitely cosmetic, right? So like when I look at Title 11 trees, that's a big deal. And I can only imagine that that could take up most of the oxygen in the room that day. And there's a lot on that. So how will we prepare to identify those that need more prep time, if you will?
Well, for starters,
Like if you
your,
just signal to our offices.
yeah,
in
if your
own-
chiefs will let us know which ones we'll highlight the ones you're most concerned with. We will make sure to spend more time on those, spend more time talking about them with you.
I just want to make sure we're alert to those that will merit more
Correct.
dialogue.
Thanks, Commissioner. I have a question about council, I think, tomorrow. So we're looking at 3 titles, 5, 6, and 7. I think that's correct. And are 5 and 6, what's happening? Oh, well, here's the deal. We have exhibits, exhibits A, B, and C. Exhibit B shows the track changes. The other exhibits A and C are just kind of straight up code. So I can look at exhibit B and kind of see how what's being changed. Exhibits A and C are just kind of about 200 pages of code that
Yeah.
looks.
We didn't, and that was my error. I was supposed to have 7 with track changes showing as a supplemental, and I didn't upload it correctly. So I apologize for that. 5 it's literally, think of it as being scrapped entirely and start from scratch. There's all of those chapters. Trying to match a track change on Title V was almost impossible because the chapters that are going forward are basically written from scratch, and the ones that have been removed, they're,
Okay.
yeah.
And do you remember the title of that title?
Title of
5?
5, I think it's finance.
Revenue and finance,
Revenue
Yeah,
and
that sounds
finance, yeah.
important.
kind of important.
Yeah, I mean, I wish. And I think I'm just
And your
saying that.
offices also have been given the red line versions of them, just so you can see,
Okay.
so.
Commissioner Maps, if I might observe on this title where we are now,
Yeah.
we get into a lot of granularity in the code
Yeah.
on these items. So when we were tackling that, and then we sometimes override it anyways by the budget we adopt. So this becomes this, it's a directional thing. I sometimes wonder how much it's really informing current policy. And we're dealing with this general issue that this is a whole bunch of stuff that is administrative in nature that for whatever reason in the past, over many years, folks continue to dump into code.
Sure.
I'm speaking only with a couple of pieces that I've tackled, but even the context of budgets, like, why is this in code? I mean, and there was some historic reason, there was some grand bargain by but that does get into the day-to-day administration. So I share with you, there's the concern about, well, we're doing a lot here and it's affecting literally money. I mean,
Yeah.
it's not something that but we're starting from a base of incredible granularity in code that I just don't know. That's why I was asking the question of what they plan to do on the rules side to fill the gap, because people still need to have guardrails in this area. And so if it's not in code, something else needs to be stood up pretty darn quick to at least guide behaviors out of the gate in 2025.
I appreciate that. It looks like Mike was going to say
Well,
something.
I was going to prompt Diana, the reason I think that this is, first of all, the reason it's so administrative is that I think at some point, somebody thought that all of this stuff was really important in code. And so they wrote some code about it. And after that, from then on, when we would change a way we did something, we would have to amend the code because
Yeah.
it was in code. And you just spiral down into this land of administrivia because it's in code. And so what do? You amend the code and you amend it again. And so every time you change something over time, it just evolves into a lot of administrative stuff. And I think that's probably what drove folks to say, let's just eliminate the whole thing and rewrite it rather than try to amend all this stuff because it just becomes horrible. And so don't want to put words in your mouth, Diana, but I think that's how we ended up with some of these getting just completely removed and rewritten.
Correct. And not to mention that that particular title, there were things that expired in 1968 and we still had them in code. And so it was their time to go away.
Let me ask the city administrator, or maybe even the mayor, what is council's role in this particular process, given, I'm trying to figure out how to be good at my job, given the job
Sure.
in front of me.
No, I've thought a little bit about this since we have had our discussions recently with the council. And I think it is absolutely appropriate for the council to take this work really seriously. This is the code. These are the laws by which we operate the city and gives us the authority to do a lot of things. So it's absolutely appropriate that you should be thinking about this code pretty carefully. And you would do that no matter what we were doing with code. But in this case, we're also changing very structurally and actually thinking about what's the intent of code generally, rather than what's this specific code change. We're doing both at the same time, which even raises the stakes on your reviewing these things. On the other hand, we amend code all the time. If we change the code and the new council finds sometime next March that, that doesn't feel right, and I guarantee you, 12 other people up here, they might feel differently about certain things we do, and they'll say, we're gonna tweak that. And that's gonna happen. And so while it is very important, and your role here is absolutely essential, we will continue to change code as we go. And this discussion, as Robert rightfully has said, this is kind of the beginning of this relationship between executive and the use of administrative rule and the use of code and how they relate to each other. And we're going to have this conversation, rightfully, Robert's right, for years and probably forever. But the first few years, everybody's going to be kind of finding their way with each other. And so I would expect the council to come back in the future, first year, second year, and make changes to this code as we go. So we're giving it our best shot. Diana and the attorneys that have worked on this, there's some stuff that's absolutely obvious. The thing that went dead in 1968, get rid of that. And there's stuff that's absolutely, most of Title V, administrative, most of it. So let's get rid of most of that stuff and we'll put it in rule. But then there's that gray area in between, and we're making the best judgments we can about it. Those judgments will continue into the future, and your role right now of exercising your judgment on those things is really important.
Yeah, I mean, it is a tension, right? Because we're setting this up for the next form of government. We're mostly not going to live with the ramifications of what we're doing. And if we're too light on the oversight, then essentially, I don't mean this in any way a disparaging way, but we're letting the bureaucracy make really core decisions about what is administrative versus policymaking. But it's just such a volume of code to deal with at one time. So our ability to really, one, we're setting up for the next form of government that can change whatever we do anyway. So what Mike is alluding to is, we don't need to take ourselves too seriously in that because it can be fixed, but there's literally no one else to oversee the bureaucracy right now than us in terms of what's being proposed. And I say that without judgment, no disparagement. It's just, it's either a runaway ship or it's us, and with limited capacity to absorb all that's before us.
Commissioner Gonzalez and Mike, and I appreciate your perspectives on what we're doing, and that sounds right to me. I also, want to say, I feel like it's important to state the obvious that given the scope of what we're doing and the timeline that we're doing it in, I certainly can't do the due diligence that I'd like to do here. Whenever I kind of dive into it, it looks like what we're doing makes sense and is consistent with the will of the voters. On the other hand, it strikes me as being entirely appropriate should future members of council or future city administrators realize that there are things that we didn't think about here. Like the titles tomorrow are for like revenue and finance, special taxes, business license law. You know, those are big, meaty subjects that I'm sure people have lots of opinions about. But I appreciate the dialogue and the chance to kind of share some of my concerns and thoughts with my colleagues.
I want to say this. So each category is pretty broad. So when you look at this as a current member of this council, I don't know anything about the details of them. And so my question is, who's the authority that you're working with? What bureau, professional, what DCA office? And then I'd like to see who are the stakeholders that they are engaging with before this comes for the first reading. For example, original art murals. I can assume that DCA Szymanski with the arts office in that area would be involved. I assume maybe somebody in, where else? I thought I gave an easy example. But there's always usually more than one DCA and one bureau. And I think it's important for us to know that that type of process is taking place, because we're all being asked to make big decisions very quickly. Get that. Again, this is a routine maintenance that could have been done a long time ago, but it's being done because we're doing a transition. So this is just good work that we could have been doing anyhow, in my opinion. But I just need to know who is at the table and being informed about these. So like when I brought up like 11 tree codes, clearly because of our catastrophic weather event in January, a lot of people have extreme opinions on that now. Probably not the best time to make the change in the middle of the emotion. That happens too much in government and you regret it later. That said, there's a lot of wisdom now from people out there on this issue. I need to know that there's some engagement prior to us making this change. And for that matter, is the GTAC group that the volunteers that are overseeing the transition, are they heavily involved in any of this?
They were heavily involved in the first two sections. So I can tell you the
But
process.
not any of this?
Not this, because of the speed at which this has happened in the last couple of years.
That's all the more reason.
So
you probably
we
wanna-
have two different groups that have helped guide this. From the attorney side, we've had the attorneys who specialize within each of the code sections, working with their subject matter experts, dealing directly with them. On my side,
Find subject matter experts. for me.
like the chief engineer or the people who do the work day to day. On my side, all of the bureau directors provided me people in their bureaus who were representatives to this process, and they have helped to provide guidance throughout this on what updates were necessary when they were bringing code forward. They've given guidance throughout this process. There were 25 people, I think, on that group. And they also communicated with their DCAs or their bureau directors. So it was sort of two streams coming together, united, in order to
Internally.
create it. Internally,
Yeah.
correct.
No, I think it sounds like it's very thorough internally. I think it can keep improving. Obviously, we've had a couple examples of that today. And because this is a work session and all of this is coming up, my advice would be for me that I'd like to see who beyond internal bureaucracy experts we are working with to form this opinion.
Yeah. I think my initial.
Or we're just setting it up where the next council will go through this
Yeah.
perhaps. So I'm trying to,
Understand.
yeah.
Yeah, when we went through the first two sections, the ones related to the ranked choice voting and to the council rules and procedure, we did engage the public heavily in that. And we recognized that it took a year to make two tiny section changes. I mean, those were two amongst 27 titles. And so the ability for us, staffing-wise, to be able to engage on that level was limited. We were hoping to have more time to be able to do it, but because in July, we had to essentially start again and had 6 months to do the work instead of 2 years to do the work, we weren't able to engage in the way that we were hoping. So it is an unfortunate part of this process that we weren't able to spend more time engaging with the GTAC, engaging with other stakeholders in the work.
I hope you're,
Yeah.
I hear you, and I hope that you're getting some information that could help. You're not doing
Always.
this all alone. You're working your tail off. Thank you, Diana. But I don't want to hear about Title 28 floating structures unless I know that the good people that are in floating structures on the Columbia River that have been engaged in that subcommittee. So, I'd call Ron Schmidt, for example. Like, there's just people that have knowledge out there in the community that if we pass these without hearing from them, I would be surprised.
Commissioner, I think one of the challenges, right, is that technically we shouldn't really be doing policy making as a part of this. We're trying to set up the code and the division between what's administrative rules and what's in code to reflect the new structure. We don't have the time to do the policy work in each of these areas right now. We're just trying to set the table as cleanly as we can for the next forum. I mean, I sometimes would lean, at least initially, is like, when in doubt, take it out and put it into administrative rules and just flag it for the next council. You guys should look at policy making in this area, and you still preserve the rules going forward. You put it in administrative, but
I
that's
think there's a fine balance. I don't think, though, I think the examples you used were new. They're new, and so it took longer. I think some of these, we have some very informed stakeholders that just might provide a little bit of feedback that mostly might be affirming. But I guess I don't want to say that that can't happen just because of the speed in which we have to operate right now.
I also do want to say that the changes are pretty strategic. So as Commissioner Gonzalez stated, we're not changing, with the exception of Title V, which is just wholly being rewritten from scratch, we are not changing the policy direction that council has outlined in code.
Okay.
We are being very strategic in that it is aligning with the charter. So I guess, to put it another way, there isn't a lot of that stakeholders can make changes on.
We're passing
we're being
it forward
strategic.
and giving the next council a lot of authority to dive in later.
Correct.
I hear that. Maybe it's just me, but it's hard for me to have something on the table without looking at maybe some obvious updates that could take place.
I wish we had time to make the obvious updates.
Well, maybe we will.
Hey, Commissioner Ryan, thanks for raising that line of questioning. I totally see the space that you're talking about and kind of have almost the opposite concern in that, tomorrow we're coming together as a council, taking a look at significant or a bunch of changes to our tax policies, basically. And I understand, I think we've been told what we're doing here is just going through and doing a cut and paste, replacing bureau director with city administrator. We all also know that there are folks throughout this town who very much care about, what our tax policy looks like. And one of the things I'm trying to do as I go through the paperwork that I get here is trying to see places where, folks who are not internal have maybe changed our code. And I think that's something we should know too. Frankly, we don't have enough time to have the full conversation that I think Commissioner Ryan wants to have. And I do think that as we update our code, we should. On the other hand, I'll take a look at some of the changes we're making tomorrow. And I think I see kind of what look to me like substantive changes around penalties in some cases for, I think maybe Title VI or whatnot. So, and maybe refunds and credits. That does seem like there are some spaces where we're making some changes to, which look to be more substantive than purely administrative. So it's something to I think there's a fine balance here, and I hear some frustration coming from Commissioner Wright. You want to jump in here and clarify?
Yeah, I totally get the efficiency of what we're trying to do.
Yeah.
I get it as an exercise.
Yeah.
And I also talk a lot about the need for culture change at this enterprise.
Sure.
And so if the bureaucracy, the administration is going to be more front-facing than it is now, because we won't have this form of government, we've kind of been the constituent affairs for the city, each office. I just want to hear that there's that type of thinking going on, and that there are some key stakeholders in each of these where you could probably affirm what you're doing is just spot on, and you might just hear some wisdom at this moment in time to clean it up just a bit based on that feedback. So I did have some frustration when I just keep hearing speed. This just has to happen. I'm not a check the box person, as you know. And so I don't want us to check the boxes quickly without having some checks and balances in this process. I'm not saying it doesn't exist, but the dialogue we're having right now hasn't suggested that it is. And I think going forward, I want to experience that each DCA office, the bureaucracy, is more constituent facing than what I've experienced in my 4 years in office.
Okay, makes sense. I'm talked out.
I have a question. So, in your opinion, then what does or does not have to be completed by January? Or is this just our own timeline that we're, obviously because of the change in form of government, but is there anything that is compelling us that we need to have, we do have like a legal deadline?
Let Robert answer the question about legal deadlines.
You know, if nothing happens, if none of this passes, the city will be okay. We will figure out how to operate in 2025. I do think it would be helpful if these changes pass, particularly around if we're referring to a commissioner in charge and we don't have that function anymore. Like, that should change. But I think we're all realistic people. We all understand the dynamic, and I think we all understand the historic challenge of changing a whole form of government, and the historic challenge of trying to rewrite the entire city code to conform to that change. So it's a big deal, and we're gonna try to do the best we can, and if we get as much done as we can, that's great. If this is something that the new council has to take up to try to address, then they can do that. And ultimately, as a legal matter, the charter specifies the distinctions between the legislative and executive. The charter would control the code. We would have to try to interpret the code in a way that was consistent with that charter authority. So it's not going to be elegant, but I think the city will survive. The city will operate if these code changes don't pass.
Thank you. I have a follow-up question. So if we did pass these things, and clearly there are things that needed that deeper look or review or to look at for that policy direction that one of my colleagues mentioned, is there something to put in place now to ensure that that happens, or we can't compel that for the new council?
I think it would be a real challenge to compel the new council and the new set of elected officials to do a certain thing. I do think, though, that, and this I think gets to Commissioner Ryan's point about you're going to have a new 12-member council. They are going to have committees. I think the goal is for those committees to be the real policy-making engine. And so that's where you would hope to see a lot of that community feedback. So, for example, I could imagine a committee taking up, this, notwithstanding all the changes we have made, there's still obsolete provisions of our code that probably should get repealed just because they don't make any sense, or they've already expired or whatever. And you could imagine a committee of the council studying that particular issue. So, and I think it's going to be up to that council. They can decide to do that or not to do that, and that'll be their prerogative.
That I feel compelled to say that, you know, and this relates a little bit to what I said before about your role here. It is an important role. You're taking up, you know, practically the entire code for the city. And if there is a level of discomfort among a majority of this council that you want to delay these things, it will by definition push them to the next council in some cases. But Robert's right. The city won't expire. We're actually trying to run the city now the way it will run in the future without any of these code changes. So we're making interpretations constantly about, okay, how does this work in the new form? So I don't know if I want everybody to hear this, we're kind of winging it, you know, because we've got the old code.
I prefer moving with alacrity.
Moving with alacrity, thank you. And so January 1st, the world will not end, the city will continue. And I am very confident that the new council will have a committee that has to do with probably general government or operations or something like that, where we would take things like code cleanup and those kinds of things. So, and I guess I just want you to understand that, you know, you are not compelled to vote yes on these changes. You play a vital role in representing the public on this stuff. So
Let me give a couple of counters. to
sure, please
that.
do.
I mean, first of all, yes, we can certainly push this off to the next council. But they're not going to be in any better position than we are to be able to interpret these things. And I feel that we have an obligation to turn over the government on day one in a manner that it is up and operational. I mean, so far it seems like the only major argument is the number of staff members, which is great. I mean, if that's the big issue, then we have done our job, and the council can take that up and they can make their own mind up about what kind of staffing they need. We've had lots of discussions about that. I'm somewhat more reluctant to turn over half-baked code. They can always change it because it is in code. So if they decide, oh no, these guys got it wrong, they got the balance wrong, they can always change it. So there's two things I would say to that. Number one, in addition to they can always change it, if you turn it over to the council where the mayor no longer is seated at the table having a say on this issue, I fear that the code they come up with that defines the structure of the government may be unintentionally heavy-handed towards the legislative branch and weakening, potentially weakening the executive branch. That to me seems like an area of exposure. The other thing you could do, I mean, if people really, really felt uncomfortable with this, and I don't, I realize this is going to be fluid. It's a work in progress. It could take years for them to iron everything out as they try the new government and see how it goes. We could put a date certain on it. We could say we are passing this and it blows up in 24 months, 48 months, whatever else. And over the course of that time, there needs to be an additional process where they sort out the details. But honestly, the public directed us to do this. They gave us very, very little time to do it. I'm assuming that people were informed when they cast their votes and they understood this was a tall order to get completely right in the time that we have available to us to do it. And we're doing our best. So I would be inclined to say let's keep going. And if we've made some sort of a mistake here, the future council can always correct it again by a majority vote of that council. It's code. It's not changing the charter.
True.
That's just my opinion.
I largely agree. I probably have raised the most concerns in today's session and in general through the code change stuff. This is obviously, this is both a necessary set of actions and not nearly as, we haven't given ourselves enough time to get through it. But frankly, next councils can come through and fix it. And frankly, I think next councils are going to start the new year with a basket of other issues that are going to be pretty important and will be doing the future a solid by moving this conversation forward.
I agree as well. Move forward.
Well, as
We don't have to make a decision at all here. And
Yeah, yeah.
Just, I guess it's my job and Robert's job to remind people we cannot make a decision here. This is a work session.
my caution about not rubber stamping isn't that we don't pass these. I'm really crystal clear we have to do this work. It's very important. What I'm saying is there are some that we probably could alert that need more cleanup than others, and that we are passing something along that intelligence says needs further dialogue. And I don't want this institutional knowledge to not be shared. That's what I'm getting at.
And it also doesn't prohibit future staff from bringing forward changes when they recognize that they've had dialogue with community and there are needed changes. They certainly could bring forward those as well. So.
Right. And so I wanted it in the record by saying that we're moving this along without due process. There are some really smart constituent experts out there that we're not engaging with because of the duty at hand.
Right.
And so I just wanted that to be said. That's all I was getting at, my colleagues. Thanks.
All right, clear as mud. Is there more to the presentation?
No.
Can I offer
Yeah,
one?
go for it.
You know, on one of the items that we've been tackling publicly as a council, it was requested of me by someone on an editorial board, you know, decide what you're going to decide, but leave a roadmap for who's next to come back and reevaluate. You know, what did you tackle, what didn't you, and why? Just to sort of educate. The next council may come back and think we were all lunatics and want to go an entirely different way, but just to leave the trail warm as to why we ended up going the way we did. And I guess, you know, that's somewhat on us, but it's also on you all as the technical experts digging in to get to Commissioner Ryan's point, and, you know, kind of my separate one, and Commissioner Mapp's kind of getting at that, you know, some of this needs real policy reevaluation, and we haven't gone through the policy work. Okay, let's flag those for the new council. And again, they're going to decide what they want to do, but at least that we, you know, we get the benefit of this form of government's, you know,
Yes.
reviewing it, flagging it. You know, separately, there's the question of, well, who's making these recommendations on what? What are their guiding lights, right? And that's there's what's black and white in the new charter, and then there's a whole bunch of gray area, and that's and then this even more fundamental question: should this even be in code in the future? And I think you guys are taking on some places, and so I don't know. I don't know what that looks like. Again, it was just a request made of me as an existing council member on an entirely different subject, where we now have some functional expertise, for better or worse, that the next council can choose to leverage or not. But how do we leave those breadcrumbs for whoever comes next?
Well, I can say the charter transition team is doing a final report, which I think will be out next March. And we have a substantially large lessons learned section, and I will certainly add this to the lessons learned.
Well, and there's lessons learned about a process of changing form of government. There's, you know, some things that was approved in the charter that upon further reflection, maybe we would or wouldn't do the same way. But this is almost, you know, this is literally the code, the execution of, you know, the core legislative function outside of budgeting, and what is just trying to leave the places. You guys should really go back and look at this at some point in the next year. I don't know how to capture that piece, but
We'll
I'll
think
leave it
about
at
it.
that.
Yeah.
I actually think, Diana, you've done this in a number of your presentations where this is what we did. We removed antiquated language, antiquated sections. We looked at the balancing between the legislative branch and the executive branch and what should be in policy and what should be in rule. We looked at stuff that doesn't even exist anymore and we got rid of that. And so, I mean, I've seen you do this title by title. Here's what we did and here's why we did it. What I haven't necessarily heard is, we looked at this, we didn't do anything with it, but you should. And I think there's some of that there too, but documenting that, I think, is what Commissioner Gonzalez is saying, so that, so to speak, the warm handoff
Yeah.
is that here's what we did, and here are a few issues that we left outstanding. We didn't do those. You might want to look at them. And
Yeah.
I know you know that. It's just documenting
Documenting.
it so that we can pass it on, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's one specifically the next legislature, and one, maybe it's going to be more seamless on the executive and administrative side, maybe, but clearly the next legislative, that's the tree code. I mean, that could be a freaking 6-month process, maybe 2-year process.
I was going to say more than 6 months.
5-year process. How long is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Thank you for your time.
All right, good work, everybody. Great questions. So this is coming to council on,
Yeah, it's coming tomorrow on the
correct.
13th, on the 20th, and on the 4th of December. So
okay,
you're
so
getting a lot
not
of.
everything we covered today is coming tomorrow.
Correct.
Okay,
You're-
good.
it's
This
over
was a
many,
really
many
good
weeks.
discussion. Thanks, you guys. Thanks, Diana. Thank you very much. And Robert, thanks for your leadership. As always, Michael, we're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.